There was a lot of activity this week, from the off-year elections to talks to reopen the government to an encouraging move by the Trump administration to designate or redesignate the government of Nigeria as a country of particular concern because of the ongoing egregious and systematic persecution of Christians. So here to recap some of the events of this week and to offer some analysis is our panel from the Washington Stand, managing editor for the broadcast, Casey Harper, and editorial director and senior writer, Suzanne Bowdey. Casey, Suzanne, thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
Okay, let's start with this. We are in the now longest government shutdown in the history. And President Trump on Wednesday is saying that the way out is to eliminate the legislative filibuster in the U.S. Senate. Now, this might bring a short-term gain, but Suzanne, this could be very costly in the end. What do we need to be looking at here?
I have to tell you, I understand the Republicans' frustration. It has to be absolutely infuriating when Democrats have shut the government down and refused to negotiate about a solution. But abolishing the filibuster isn't a magic wand that's suddenly going to help conservatives pass everything on their agenda. I think there's this misconception in Washington that, hey, once we lower the 60 vote threshold to 51, we'll be able to do whatever we want. And I'd just like to remind people that a 51 vote threshold is what we had for the reconciliation bill. And I don't think Mike Johnson thought that a simple majority was so simple to work with. So to say that this is just a silver bullet, really, to do everything we want to do is actually looking at it very upside down. At no time in the recent future, in the recent Congress, has there been real unity among the Republicans. Now, Mike Johnson has been able to cobble together some real miracles in the House to pass reconciliation, the one big beautiful bill, and other things. But let's say he does pass something miraculously again, it still goes to the Senate, where John Thune has his own thorns in the flesh in the form of senators like Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins, who are liberal, who could stand in the way of anything Republicans want to do. In fact, in my opinion, abolishing the filibuster would really just hand more power to those liberal Republicans in the Senate and the blue state Republicans in the House, who always want to water down things we're trying to do, like, adding pro-life provisions to legislation or to budgetary items. And what has Trump said he's going to do with this filibuster? So far, all he said is we're going to ban mail-in ballots and we'll have voter ID. Well, that's great, but we don't have any concessions that if we did this, we would get something like, late-term abortion limits or protections for minors from gender transition procedures, parental rights, and education. So we're really looking at a dangerous short-term solution for a long-term problem.
Well, let's talk about what would happen if the Democrats are in the majority, which over the last 100 years, if my math is correct, they've had 72 of those 100 years. 72% of the time over the last century, the Democrats have been in the majority in the Senate. I mean, had the filibuster not been in place, the legislative filibuster we're talking about here, we would have policies such as the LGBTQ policy, their crown jewel, the Equality Act. We would have abortion on demand. Biden tried to push that over after the overturn of Dobbs. That was the Women's Health Protection Act. We would have nationalized elections, the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. Those just happened in the last Congress. We don't have to go back further to see what they would do. So I think it's a safety valve, a safety net to keep America from, or keeping a few politically motivated, emotionally driven senators from, just destroying this country, quite frankly.
And I don't think we're unified enough as a movement to say that we can be entrusted with this 51 vote threshold to do the right thing either. I mean, we keep hearing people say, oh, well, the Democrats are going to do it, so we should do it before they do. That's a terrible idea and a terrible basis for decision making. And I'd also like to remind everyone that it's not necessarily true that the Democrats would abolish the filibuster. Last time around, we saw their own party, Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, take courageous stands to protect the filibuster. So it's not a foregone conclusion that this would be over for us. So it boggles the mind that they'd be willing to tear down these rules for for just such temporary gain.
The words of my father come to mind when I was a kid. So if everyone else is going to jump off a bridge, you want to jump
Right.
off too? So you want to be the first to jump off? Is that what you're saying? I mean,
It's the only wall standing between the minority party, whichever that is, Republicans or
Right.
Democrats, and really, really radical ideas of the left, or in the Republicans' case, I'm sure if the shoe were on the other foot, the Democrats wouldn't love everything that we would do either. It's a terrible idea, and people need to reconsider this and think about why the founders designed the Senate the way they did, which was to be more deliberative.
I would, one final comment on this before we move on to elections from this week, is that I think we have to be very, very methodical in analyzing any decision, any change that we make that moves us further away from what the founders and those close to the founding of this nation put in place. Because I do not think our foundation that we have today is as firm as it was back then.
Absolutely.
All right, let's talk about the aftermath of this past Tuesday, the election results. Casey, New York City now has a self-proclaimed Muslim Democrat socialist. He's the mayor-elect. What does this victory by Mamdani mean?
Yeah, well, it means a few things. I mean, obviously, any taboo around having the word socialist on your platform is sort of wearing off. But I think that Mamdani really represents probably four things to me. One is the hard shift left among women, young women in particular. I think 84% of Gen Z women voted for Mamdani. So we see young men are becoming more conservative, but young women are becoming much more liberal. So Mamdani represents that. We're also seeing some of the effects of mass migration. I mean, New York City, this is an amazing stat to me. New York City is 37% foreign born. So, I mean, what is an American election when 37% of the voters were not born in America? This is the kind of thing you get. So I think we're seeing, the effects of mass migration everywhere, but New York City, and the second effect here is this. So we can dive into any of these. And then this is more controversial, but I think we're seeing, I call it Islamic dominionism. We've seen it happen in Europe. We've seen London has a Muslim mayor. We've seen, I think London is like 20% Muslim, but they're already able to get a mayor spot. They're very organized, and the same is the case in New York City. And the last point I think is really important, and we can learn something from this, is that there's a lot of economic angst in the country, and any form of economic populism that politicians are able to capture, whether it's the right or the left, does really well. And so that's how you had voters who voted for Bernie Sanders and then voted for Donald Trump. It's not always red and blue anymore. Whoever comes up with some policy that promises, whether it's true or not, promises to address affordability, it's almost a silver bullet in politics right now.
Okay, for the next week, we're going to unpack all of those points that you just brought out. There's so much there.
4-point sermon.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's very instructive. So I want to start. I don't even know where to start with that. There's so much there. Let me start with the point about the immigration issue. Because you make a reference to London. That's a part of the problem in Europe, is their migration in of those in the Muslim community that are coming in. So up until the late 1960s in this country, we regulated legal immigration because we wanted to keep that balance and allow people to assimilate in. Now, I know that this sounds very foreign to the ears of some today, but that's what we did in order to preserve our national identity and make sure people were being assimilated into the culture so that we didn't have someone like this running for mayor in the largest city in America, which, by the way, he is proposing a government that runs counter to our Constitution. And it may be incumbent upon Congress at some point under Article 4, Section 4, or Section 4, Article 4, Section 4, for the Congress to intervene to ensure that a Republican form of government exists there in New York.
Yeah, that's a little known point there, Tony, but it has to be, the Constitution does guarantee this, and the founders put that in there for a reason. And they also warned about immigration. I mean, we're not just kind of inventing this on the heels of Joe Biden's immigration crisis or something. From the very beginning of the country, there was strict controls on on legal immigration, of that the people that came here had an understanding of a free society, of a Republican value. Republican values, I don't mean, Republican Party values. I mean of what it means to be a Republican, not to be under authoritarianism. And so if you import people from all around the world, I mean, maybe good, well-meaning people who just want, an economic benefit, but if they're not here because they love the American ideals and the ideals of us being a republic, it's only natural that we're going to shift away from something that is very hard, as Benjamin Franklin warned us, very hard to keep a republic.
Yeah. And all of these, all the free stuff that he's offering under this democratic socialist agenda, if the Democrats are in control nationally, they can, they can subsidize New York City. But I think this is going to be the real issue for him: is how is he going to pay for it?
Yeah, I want to go back to the filibuster point. What is the filibuster? Nuking the filibuster does one thing: it makes it a lot easier to spend money. And if there's anything that we should be wary of right now in our current fiscal situation, nearing $40 trillion probably by the end of President Trump's term, making it easier to spend money to bail out cities. We bailed out banks. I'm sure we could bail out the handsome socialist mayor of New York under a Democrat administration. It would be easy to do. Actually, Obamacare already bailed out a lot of big cities' pensions, like Chicago. People don't know that, but it already happened.
My prediction is you're going to see a lot of people leaving New York. I've already been leaving, but I think Florida just got a lot bigger. All right,
the people who can pay for the policies are leaving.
Yeah, well, true. That's true. The people that are getting the bill are the ones that are going to be leaving. Right. All right, I want to turn now to international matters. Suzanne, earlier this week, you covered the tragic situation unfolding in Sudan and what our brothers and sisters there in Christ are facing. And for those of you who have not read the Washington Stand report yet, you can get it. Go to WashingtonStand.com or just go to TonyPerkins.com and follow the links over. But good news this week in that the president did reclassify the government of Nigeria as a country of particular concern. I know two different countries, but let's start with Sudan and then let's talk about Nigeria. Suzanne.
Well, a lot of the focus is on Nigeria, and rightly so. The persecution against Christians there has been horrific. But Sudan, as a lot of people know from over the years, has just been a hotbed of hostility, civil war, just a humanitarian crisis that's resonated for a couple of decades. But in this last week, we've really seen the civil war that kicked off again in 2023. I know you've been to Sudan, but a couple of years after you left now, the hostilities have returned. And the civil war that's happened has just taken down the last city that the Sudanese army held in the Darfur region. And unfortunately, that has been a slaughter unlike any other. It has just been an absolute bloodbath. We're talking about 250,000 people in the city of El Fasher who've been pinned in by basically a wall that the Rapid Special Forces who are fighting the Sudanese army for control of that city have penetrated. Mass executions, an entire hospital where every doctor, nurse, staff member, family member, patient was killed, people being lined up. The blood is so severe and so widespread that you can see it from space. There is a communication blackout in this area right now, and the only way that the international community knows this is happening is because they can see the bodies on the ground, which there are hundreds, if not thousands of them by now, and the mass graves being built just over the last 7 days. We really need to be in prayer for our brothers and sisters in Sudan. We really need to pressure the Trump administration to intervene in this situation.
Yeah, it is now the greatest humanitarian crisis in the world, and it's only going to intensify as the famine there that follows this conflict continues. Ladies and gentlemen, we're out of time. Thanks for joining me.